Hi, this is Bob Scully, and welcome to another edition of The World Show, the Entrepreneur Series. Drill, baby, drill. If you have taken those words to heart, then you really want to meet the entrepreneur I'm going to introduce in a few minutes. He drills on over 250 rigs around the world for oil, for gas, for minerals, even for water. And he's fearless. He goes to all these hot spots and always returns safe and sound. A fascinating man. That's coming up. But first, the digital revolution, as we know, is upon us. It's using up the brain power of a lot of tech-savvy young minds, but it requires business acumen as well. And the combination of those two talents is rarer than we think. One young entrepreneur, Jeff Quipp, a brilliant mind, good at tech and good at money, has found that combination, and it's magic. And he's got a great team around him. They call themselves the search engine people. Here's Jeff Quipp. Jeff Quipp, Search Engine People, has scored, I think, 5 years in a row in Canada's Profit 100. So it's obviously going gangbusters, and it's a great name. Although when I was reading the research, I thought to myself, if somebody had started a company 20 years ago called Search Engine People, they would have said, go back to school, because you don't know how to make a complete sentence. But now we understand immediately that you're, of course, in the online business. What is it you do?
We help companies market themselves online. Essentially, the internet is so new, relatively speaking, that a lot of companies, well, they understand traditional marketing, newspaper, radio, TV. They don't yet understand the internet. And of course, it's evolving so fast that they need help understanding how it works and how they can capitalize on it to, further their business and stay with the times. So that's really what we help them do. And we specialize in search. So in helping companies get better positioning in Google or do paid search with Google, Bing, any of the other paid search engines. That's really the mainstay of what we do is search, but we do a lot of other things as well. Anything that will help to impact search. And
you found your niche working for a major website. Simpatico, I think, was Bell, wasn't it? So you were in sort of lost in this army of programmers and specialists and so on, and you were chafing at the bit, right? You wanted to be. So how did that happen? You left it there one day and.
Good question. I was in charge of yellowpages.ca at one point, and part of my role in that position was to drive as much traffic through to the website as I possibly could. And that's when I discovered search, and that was pre-Google. So the initial search engine I found was Overture Go-To, and of course Google evolved it and came up with a better search engine. But found that, wow, this new concept of search engines could drive a whole lot of traffic to a website. And I saw that was kind of where the Yellow Pages was going, if you will. And so we tried to hire a couple of companies to do it for us, and neither was very successful. So at that point I said, if there's no good company out there doing this, then maybe I could be that company. And I've always had the entrepreneurial spin, desire. So found that as thought that was my opportunity. So I left Simpatico and started Search Engine People, and started in my basement, in my house.
And how much of a techie do you have to be to crack? Do you crack the Google algorithms, which are supposedly very secret? And if you can master that, then you'll end up on top of the search list. But it's secret. Is there some of that in there?
The really interesting thing was when I first got into the business, I really had no technical skills whatsoever. In fact, our first purchase as a company was the book HTML for Dummies, because I had no idea how to implement what I was learning about. So I bought HTML for Dummies, taught myself HTML, and did start to implement it. But what I realized early on was the industry was full of technical people, but they had no real business acumen. So I thought, I can bring business acumen to the industry, and I can hire technical people. And really, that's kind of how we evolved as a company. So a lot of what we do now isn't trying to reverse engineer the Google algorithm, because we have if you do that, you're always fighting fires. You're always, Google's making 500 plus changes a year to its algorithm. So you're always trying to fix what's broken.
Google's not your friend if you're trying to crack their code.
No. So we try and look 5 years ahead and say, where do we know Google wants to be 5 years from now? And then whatever we do now, let's make sure that satisfies where we know they want to be 5 years from now. So rather than trying to reverse engineer their algorithm, we try and anticipate what it is that they want and try and give them what they want.
And so you will, let's say your typical client is somebody who's not getting attention on the web. Yep. What kind of business? Let's say a restaurant or a retail chain, or?
Yeah, retail. So we do a lot of retail. We do a lot of professional services companies, a lot of B2B companies that, and they run the gamut. It could be a small company, mostly mid-sized companies and large companies that we deal with. Mm-hmm. And generally, yeah, they know that they're missing an opportunity online. So, 10 years ago, people weren't talking about search the way that they are today. Today, there's a lot of buzz around search, and people know that they need to be there. And so they start looking for companies that can help them understand what the opportunity is, and then implement implement and strategize.
In other words, it's not as simple as, if you're a company, mm-hmm. you have your website, everybody publishes that in their ads and everywhere on their business cards. Yeah. You would think that that's enough, that people interested in you will punch in your website. Yeah. But it's not enough.
No.
The name must come up how? In other incidental searches? What's the game?
Yeah, and that's a really good point. So I compare it to the old phone book, in that mm-hmm. you had the white pages and the yellow pages. If people knew you by name, they would go to the white pages and look for you specifically by name. The yellow pages is when you had a problem and you didn't know the company that you were looking for. And that's really the same as the internet today. There are going to be a small proportion of people looking for your business name, mm-hmm. by name, but the vast majority of opportunity available for businesses is people looking for solutions to problems. And so they'll go and type in, leaky faucet, mm-hmm. or broken toilet, something like that, or cosmetic surgery. And our goal is to help our clients' sites start to appear high in the rankings for those terms, so that when people search for it, they're found in the search results, and therefore there's a much better chance that they'll be contacted and ultimately take on that prospect as a client.
The equivalent in the yellow pages was to call yourself AAA, because it was alphabetical.
Yes.
So you were AAA plumbing or AAA taxi or AAA whatever. It's not that simple anymore. But we get back to the question of how do you outdo the guys that really run the search engine? Yep. It is kind of a dance here. You are trying to be quicker than them.
Yeah, to some extent, yes. So Google's made a lot of changes, and they continue to make a lot of changes. As I said earlier, about 500 changes per year to their algorithm. Mm-hmm. And now it's more about, whenever you perform a search on Google, for example, they want you to find what you're looking for more often using Google than any other search engine. And the reason that they want that to happen is because there's paid links along the periphery called the sponsored listings. Mm-hmm. And that's where they generate the vast majority of their revenues. And they know, it's a simple mathematical model, the more often you look at their search results, the more often, 25% of the time roughly, you're going to click on the sponsored links, which generate revenue for them.
That's pretty high.
Yeah. So the more relevant their search results, the more often you're going to click on those links along the periphery, and the more revenue it's going to generate for them. Mm-hmm. So it's key to them that their search results their organic search results, or main search results, are more relevant than anybody else's. Mm-hmm. And anything that interferes with that, they're going to have an issue with. And if you think about it, when people perform a search, they've got a problem, and they're looking for an answer to that problem. So in Google's mind, they want companies with a lot more credibility that you're familiar with appearing near the top of the search results. Mm-hmm. So if you're a really small company, it's going to be difficult for you to compete with the big players in the game, because they've got a lot more awareness, a lot more credibility, and Google would rather have them come up.
But who's making those determinations at Google? That Acme Plumbing is better than XYZ Plumbing?
Yeah.
Who's making that determination? That sounds more like a human determination than a computer one.
Right. Well, so I like to call it an arm's chair inference, where Google really wants the best search results mm-hmm. to surface at the top, the most relevant. And up until now, it's really been armchair inferences. And then they use variables to try and assess which site is more relevant than another. And one of the elements that they've used in the past is the number of links from other sites pointing to your site. Oh. And they've said the more often that your site is linked to from other sites, the more powerful and the more popular it must be, so we're going to rank it better.
Okay. If everything else is the same. That can be done by a machine.
Exactly.
And so when clients come to you, what would your typical strategy be for a good company that wants to play by the rules, but that wants more notoriety, more visibility?
So one of the things that we're going to talk to them about is doing more offline. So we believe that search has a role in the marketing mix, but it's not the entire marketing mix. It shouldn't be or take the vast majority of your marketing budget. You need other forms of marketing as well. So let me explain it this way. There's creative marketing and directive marketing. Creative is where you're creating awareness or you're creating need. Directive is when you know exactly what it is that you're looking for and you perform a search for it. So a lot of people want to come in and do only directive. Because you're later in the buying process. If I do a search for a plumber, I'm late in the buying process. I must need a plumber, otherwise I wouldn't have done the search for it.
That's right.
But the creative helps to create awareness or helps to create need. So in a lot of cases, we've got companies coming to us saying, help us with search, but they haven't really established awareness of their product yet, or in a lot of cases, of their business. So we're going to ask them to do a bit of that.
Online as well, or not?
Online, offline.
And online, it becomes paid advertising.
Yeah.
And so that you can handle.
Yes.
You can prepare for them
Yes.
and so on. But it only proves that old-fashioned advertising is far from dead.
Oh, it's not. It's crucial in this day and age still, especially to Google. And over time, it's getting more and more important to Google.
And entrepreneurially, what is your business model? You will bill in what way? Is it by the hour, by the line, by the screen presence? What is the way to bill in this industry?
So it depends on the service. If you're looking at paid search, which is the listings along the periphery of Google, for example, or paid search on Facebook or LinkedIn, paid social in that case, if it's on Facebook or LinkedIn, typically we bill a percentage of the spend. And
like an advertising agency.
Yeah, yeah. But for the most part, it's on a monthly basis, so monthly retainer. So companies will hire us and say, I've got this much budget, and these are our goals. And then we'll put together a custom plan designed to achieve their goals and act on that and try and help them achieve those targets that they've got.
And Jeff Quipp, this is our French chef question, which is a final question we often use. With French chefs, we would ask them, what's in your freezer at home? What's in your fridge? What do you eat at night when you're all alone in the kitchen? How do you do your own search engine? How do you market search engine people on the web?
Yeah, that's a good question. Essentially, we like to lead with our chins. So we try everything that we do for clients, we do for ourselves. So one of the things that we're really big into, and we've been big into for a long time, is content. We add a lot of content on our website. We blog regularly. We've got a lot of product and service pages on our site. We've been doing some primary research lately, which is really interesting, and that's a new foray for us, in that we're looking at paid search results in every city across the country and drawing comparisons, saying, Toronto's the most expensive market, Vancouver's the third most expensive market.
So you're putting out information?
A lot of information. We're publishing a lot of e-books and white papers.
And so people looking for search engine professionals will be drawn to you because they've read your content with interest.
Yeah. And this is how Google wants it to work as well, because links are still an important part of the equation. So Google wants the content to attract links. So the better the quality of the content, they believe the more people are going to link to that content. And of course, that helps to increase or improve the rankings of your website as a whole. So that's a big part of what we do.
So you practice what you preach.
Exactly, we do. We practice what we preach.
Well, Jeff Quipp, keep it up.
Thank you very much.
And long life to you and to the SEP.
Thank you, thanks.
Jeff Quipp. And now, drill, baby, drill. As I mentioned at the top of the show, before those words became a political slogan, somebody was putting them into practice big time. His name is Frederick Davidson. The company is Energold. They have over 250 rigs around the world at any given time, drilling for oil, for gas, for minerals, even for water. And it's often in a hot spot, a dangerous spot. Whenever I catch up with Fred, I'm scared for him. I tell him, don't go there. But he does go, and he comes back safe and sound. He seems fearless, but not in a facile way. It's the opposite. It's because he's very careful, very professional, and very respectful of the communities and the countries where Energold does business. Here's Frederick Davidson. Fred Davidson, I think your company has more rigs than the entire state of Texas must have, except they're not all in one place. You've got that. You've got also some very interesting mining operations. What does the company do?
Well, the company basically sees itself as a commodity driller and supplier. We drill both in water, energy, minerals, and at the same time we have a strong interest in a small silver mine operating in Mexico, underground mine.
And is the idea, the mine came later, and I kind of thought this must be, you want to be able to, mining is notoriously cyclical and dangerous for investors. You want to protect against lows in price with more of a supply business. The supply businesses keep going no matter what because people always need the drill bits and so on. Is that the calculation behind this?
Yeah, it's part of it. The mining is fun. Quite frankly, I've been in mining now 35 years, and you go underground, there's explosives, there's rock stability, what have you. It's exciting, but once you get used to it, it's comfortable feeling. Mm-hmm. But it is, as you point out, very volatile industry, where what we do in drilling is we're providing a service, and that service could be whether somebody wants to drill for oil or gas, they want to drill for minerals, they want to drill for water. More continuity to it. I get to pay my staff more that way and more continuously. The mining is way too flexible for that, so yeah.
And in the end, I mean, we've heard sometimes these things are legendary. Fortunes made in the Yukon, not from finding gold, but from supplying the hotel services, the train service, the restaurant services. I mean, some people became rich living off an industry in a much more stable fashion. In a sense, maybe the drilling business is your gold mine.
Yeah, it's almost exactly that. We say the same thing about the California gold rush. You know, it was the sort of the ladies of the night and the hardware owners made the money, and seeing how the lawyers have taken over the first job, we thought we'll go for the hardware.
And so you are not seen as a competitor. Any mine that comes to you doesn't care that you have a silver mine in Mexico. I mean,
not really.
That's not relevant.
Really. It's a big world out there. We have a small mine in Mexico. And it's not a competitive situation. We offer good service. They don't care if we're drilling for ourselves or for them. You want to give them results, and that's what our job is, on time and on price.
And how much of a difference can you make to we would assume, of course it'd be naive, I suppose, to assume that miners know how to drill, and they'll just rent a drill and do it themselves. How much of a difference does it make when they come to a specialist like you? What are the challenges?
Oh, they tend to be our best customer, actually, the guys who tried it themselves. And they suddenly found out that the driller they'd engage is off on a drunk somewhere and isn't operating the rig, or the rig breaks down and there isn't a follow-up rig. No, we love that type of guy, because sooner or later we're going to get him as a client. We'll keep them as a client.
So you're turnkey. You go out there to Africa or wherever it is. You come in with the proper technicians, the proper tools. And I know you've got something like 350 rigs going at any time and around the world. It's enormous. You have therefore 350 at least people out there, or maybe more.
A lot more.
Taking care of that. We've got 1,700 employees, I think. How do you monitor all that? And I mean, what kind of problems can come up?
You name it, there's a problem. I mean, yeah, what we're trying to do, and for instance, in a client in Guinea 2 years ago, they needed to start, because of their licensing, within literally about a month. And the rigs we had were in Canada. We ended up arranging to have crews flowing in from one direction. We chartered a 747 to fly the rigs over there, $375,000 for that. And then we flew and shipped supplies in from another. We started within 2 days of our expected date. So a lot of coordination. We've got a whole team that do nothing more than logistics. And that's part of mining. People, equipment, and logistics. And that's what we do worldwide. And we're damn good at it.
And when you drill for somebody, do they have assurance already that there's something down there? Or are you the bearer of bad news if you're drilling a duster, as they say?
Hey, the odds are 10,000 to 1 that it's ever going to be a mine.
Really?
That's being generous. The odds are probably worse. So what they want us to do is get in there, test it early, keep the dollars down, and find out if there is something there so they don't spend more money. Everybody thinks it's the other way around. It's not. So yeah, we are quite often the bearer of bad news. But I can give you an example of one that we were a bearer of good news. We were drilling for a client in the Dominican Republic. They had virtually run out of money. They called us up and said, look, we've got money for one more hole. So they did a Hail Mary. I mean, they drilled a brand new target, and they hit a couple hundred meters of gold.
Wow.
and called us up immediately afterwards and said, bring the rigs back. And that one you feel pretty good about. He's made him a lot of money, made his shareholders a lot of money, made us a lot of money too.
But it is rare.
Very rare.
And you mentioned Congo, and I read in the research, I don't know the story, but the militias gave you some trouble.
Well, we get trouble with militias all the time, but what we try and do is, before we go into an area, we try and develop a relationship with the community, whether it be farmers, whether it be the government, whether it be militias. We don't want to disturb them. We prefer if they don't disturb us. And for instance, when we were drilling up near Goma and in North Kivu State, there was a civil war going on, and we managed to negotiate sort of a truce. They left us alone,